All right, good evening, everyone. Today is July 15th, and we are now in our second budget workshop. We're going to start today with the Pledge of Allegiance and followed by public comments. All right, Councilwoman Aber, the pledge.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we'll start this off with some public comments. So, Sandy, nothing? All right, moving right along. Workshop A, fiscal year 2025 budget. Council, Mr. Zinguzi.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Before we get into the details of the budget this evening, let me take a moment here to share a couple of things. First, to remind everyone that tonight's workshop is a follow-up to the previous workshop we had up in May of this year. To that end, tonight's workshop will primarily focus on what has changed since that discussion that we had back in May. The second thing I want to share with you is that I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the department heads that are here for their contributions and collaboration as we put this budget together. This was a team effort, and I'm very appreciative of their efforts. Related to that, I'd like to extend a special thank you to our Finance Director for meticulously pulling and putting together the numbers for us in the budget format that we currently have. Let me just remind you from our standpoint that our main focus as we put this budget together was guided by two main goals, twin goals, so to speak. The first one is to try as much as possible to address the needs of this community, and secondly, to advance the Council's strategic goals. We hope that as you review this budget packet, you will get an appreciation of that effort on our end. With that, let me ask our Finance Director to proceed to give you details for the workshop this evening. Crystal?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. So here we go, budget workshop number 2. Here's our agenda. Just a reminder of the budget calendar, strategic plan, priorities, guiding principles, the FY25 budget changes since the May 13th workshop, some operational highlights, the 5-year capital improvement program and the renewal and replacement program, cost recovery, millage at different rates, and the next steps. The budget process. So now we are at the, we're in our July budget workshop number 2. And this is a reminder that at the next meeting, let's see, by July 17th, we need to certify our millage rate to the property appraiser. That's why this budget workshop is so important, so that you'll be ready to adopt the millage rate for next fiscal year and set the public hearing time, so I can give that to the property appraiser. Vision 2035. Reminder, Destin is a family-oriented beach and fishing community where people want to live, work, and play, and where visitors are welcome to respectfully enjoy our community and our resources. And our prioritized customers are our year-round residents and the City of Destin-based businesses, and then the visitors. Our strategic goals and prioritized strategic goals. There we go. Then we have Council's priorities. We'll be going over this in greater depth when Lewis presents our revisions to the strategic program. Because a lot of these we've already achieved, and some of them we've already encumbered the big parts of the money, like undergrounding utilities, We just signed the $10 million contract with ADS, and that's underway. Guiding principles for this budget. Number one was safety, safety, safety. Safety of our citizens, safety of our employees, safety for our vendors. Number two is improved beautification service levels. That's the median maintenance discussion that we're going to have. We also have some ideas to improve our revenue capturing and applying the adopted 5-year renewal and replacement program as we resolved to this past April. The increase in property tax, taxable property values this year was 10%. So here is the budget as we're proposing it this evening. We're now at $65.6 million. This is in large part because we're delaying the issuance of debt to, that'll happen in October or November of 2024, which is next fiscal year. So I had to take those programs and that funding out and put that into next year. And as you can see from this, $39 million of this budget is for capital projects. $25.7 million is towards operating. So if we look at this, how this compares to the 2024 budget that was adopted, our operations is now increasing 4.4% over last year. This is in large part because Florida Blue, their estimate has come back in at an 11% increase, and personnel is the bulk of our budget. So these are the main changes since workshop number 1. I had assumed that the ad valorem taxable values would increase about 8%. In actuality, they increased about 10%, so that increased our ad valorem estimates about $200,000. If we keep the same millage rate. Operations, we added $150,000 for annexation. This would be to help us do the opinion surveys, do the meets and boundaries survey, and also to pay for a special election, if so chosen, for next fiscal year. As I just mentioned in operations, one of the big changes is that the Florida Blue rate has increased 11%. The CPI index, June over June, which is the city's policy for cost of living adjustments for salaries, came in at 2.97%. At the previous budget workshop, there was not support for to add one more code officer, so I've removed that position. All in total cost, including benefits, was $77,000, so that's removed. Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, water quality, water testing in all of our harbors. That was not in the previous budget, but we need to continue on with that. So that's $35,000 a year, and that's in the water quality fund, so that was added. At the previous workshop, we also, there was a request to reduce the amount for Christmas lighting from $140,000 down to $70,000. And there was a request for staff to try to generate more support from the local businesses, especially in the harbor area, to help us with that. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, the debt issuance, that's the big one. The $25 million that I need to borrow, 9 of that to reimburse us for purchasing One Harbor Boulevard, and then the extra $16 million to complete the undergrounding and the crosstown connector. Those have all been moved to 2025. Capital projects, there was a motion at the June 3rd meeting. Instead of doing one of the smaller dune crossovers at 162, there was a motion made to do the more expensive one at 234, so this is reflected in this budget. We've also increased the amount we need to complete Clement Taylor Park based upon the RFP results, which will be presented to council at the July 22nd meeting. And we'll also talk about timing, because it doesn't look like we'll be able to issue that contract this year. We need to go out to bid again, but the budget committee will present their results and have that discussion with council at the next meeting. And then last I mentioned moving the underground project. The bulk of the encumbrance will have to happen in 2025 after the issuance of the debt. So here we are on some of the operational highlights. Personnel, as you can see, is increasing 11%, and that's solely because of the Florida Blue. Contract services, go ahead. Sure.
That is the second time you've said that, and that's not a true statement. So I don't want you to
Nope.
dig yourself too far in the hole here. A little over 100,000 of that is Florida Blue. The merit increase is more than double that, and that is the biggest cost driver besides the COLA. Yep, go back one slide where you were.
Well, this is the one that shows the breakout, COLA, merit,
Yeah,
insurance,
merit's
and so forth.
310,000.
Well,
Okay.
compared, right,
No,
go ahead.
at least be correct and concise. That is not health insurance increases 11%, but that's not the 11% increase in the health budget. That's $100,000, a little over $100,000, which is dwarfed by the merit increase of over $300,000. So I wish you wouldn't say, well, that it's because of the increase in Florida Blue, because it's not because of the increase in Florida Blue. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. So to correct that, here we have the base salaries and the total, how we get to the 11.7 million in personnel costs. We're looking at 134 FTEs with the cost of living increase, that 2.97% is $230,000 of the increase. The merit, which we're continuing to estimate at 4%, would be $310,000. FICA retirement, insurance, workers' comp, and so forth. So here's where you see at the previous meeting, the insurance was going to be, was closer to 1.8 million. It's actually going up close to $200,000.
Crystal, I had one question about an earlier number, the attempt to incorporate the outside areas. I saw that you had on there money for a special election. The motion that passed did not include a special election.
Correct. No, not for this year. It did not. For next year, it was requested that we do surveys, opinion surveys.
It was.
And that we may do meets and boundaries as well.
Yes.
And we're estimating those costs plus potentially having a special election. All of that together would be about $150,000.
Well, now the motion that
Just-
passed said we were going to go to the next election cycle at 2 years, and we were not going to have a special election. So you can take that money out, I would think.
Okay, so I can take out, but you still need to, you're right.
Yeah, special
I
election's
believe
about
it was $10,000 was the estimate to Paul Lux for the special election. So we can
10,000?
reduce it from
After a while,
150
adds
down
up.
to 140?
Yeah, and the other thing I would point out is I've been through 2 half-cent special elections during my time on the board, school board, and neither of those, nor in the county election, did the governmental body spend any public funds on campaigning.
That's correct. We're not allowed to spend it on campaigning in
But
a
we
certain
can
direction,
do
but we
surveys.
are
I
allowed
get it.
to give general, as long as it's balanced
Yes, I
information.
just want to make sure we understood we couldn't spend it on campaigning.
Right, that's correct.
Hey, Crystal,
Go ahead.
while we're on this topic, I don't think every single item on here is based upon a motion, but I like the potential idea to have the money budgeted, and if we don't use it, then we don't use it. So me personally, if there's estimates that we might need to use for a possible special election, or, you know, it'd be nice to have it in the budget already. But if we don't have one, then we just don't use it. So for me, planning wise, just in case we do everything that Mayor was trying to achieve, to me, you know, it would makes more sense to just have the budget there just in case something changes in the next, year. That's my thoughts.
And I kind of want to say the same thing, but he said it very well. I'd rather be safe than sorry. We did put these ideas out there. We did not necessarily lock them in as motions and make them, part of what you have to make part of the budget. but I feel it best takes care of some of the things that could come up so that they're ready to be added if we had to.
Okay, thanks.
Well, with all due respect, I'd say that putting things in the budget that are contrary to adopted motions is not a good game plan. And if members of the council want to make a motion to reconsider at the next meeting and change the vote, then they certainly can, but you don't put things in a budget that are contrary to adopted motions.
And I would echo that. The whole reason we said we would wait till the next regular gubernatorial election was that we would have more people voting, that we didn't want a special election, because if you have a special election to raise taxes or incorporate people against their will, the people that are going to come out in a special election are the people that don't want it. We want it when the most people, which is the original impetus that the mayor was trying to push on to jam it in this year, was we're going to have everybody voting, and it wouldn't just be the no people. And so I agree with Mr. Destin. We had guidance, specific guidance, that we would wait until the next regular election. That was part of the motion. And again, if everybody wants to change it, that's fine. But that's not what we don't budget against what we've passed.
Yeah, just also a reminder to everybody that happened Monday night while I was, halfway through this, but good point. Okay, annexation, Florida Blue, CPI, code officer, CBA, and Christmas was reduced. We moved our capital projects forward, so let's get back to where we were. So the big change between 2024 versus 2025 is going to be in debt service. So when we issue the $25 million, our debt service, annual debt service will go up to a historic high. That'll go on for a few years until it comes back down as we pay off some of our other debt, older debt. Capital outlays will be coming down in 2025 as compared to 2024 estimates as well. Here we go. So this is one of the most important pieces here. Our estimated taxable values came in at $8.7 billion. So the ad valorem that the city would collect off of that, if we go again with the 1.615, would be $13.4 million. And here we have it separated out between homesteaded, other residential, and non-residential. And subsequently, I'll show how it's also broken out between the general city versus the two CRAs. So we're still estimating that the taxes per parcel for homesteaded parcels would be, a homesteaded parcel would be charged $495 this year. That'll be the average. And this is just a reminder about how much it costs to actually run the city. I highlighted here in yellow operations by parcel. It comes out to about $1,579 per parcel. And renewal and replacement part of that is $485 per year. So it's just a reminder of how much it costs to keep our city running. Operational highlights. So let's get to the personnel update. As you can see, I reduced this from the 6.73 full-time equivalent net positions that we had proposed last time down to 6.73. And we have the estimates of cost here for these 6.73 positions. And here's how the personnel costs break out. So here's where you can see that insurance is indeed one of the larger parts of the personnel costs, right there with the base salaries. Let's see, what else did, here it's also nice to see, look at this, culture and recreation, that's nearly 54 FTEs of our total. So here are the 6.73 positions that we proposed at the previous meeting, where we took off the code compliance officer. We still have in here a lead maintenance tech and 3 additional maintenance techs, potentially to take the median maintenance in-house. Council requested that we put out a request for bids for median maintenance to see if we could get a contractor to take it on. The request for bids came back this past Thursday, just as I was publishing this. It hasn't been through the bid committee review yet. We only received 1 bid. So bid committee will be reviewing to see if it was an actionable offer or not, and then they'll bring that to council for your decision to go forward. Again, you'll have that decision on your plates, bring it in-house or keep it contracted out. So here were the estimates. Year over year, the personnel and operating costs would be about $325,000, $340,000 a year if we bring it in-house. After that initial investment into additional equipment, the $114,000. The 1 bid that we received was for $462,000. But when that item's presented, they'll present all of the areas and the apples to apples so you can see how that all plays out. Public safety, the sheriff's contract, we're still at that increase of 6.8%. In the budget that I proposed, the lifeguard contract, we've been paying $100,000 a year since 2007, and they had verbally requested $200,000 for next year. I subsequently, after we published this budget workshop packet, I received a written request for the city to increase it to $287,000, and that will be presented as an item for council discussion at the next meeting. Code compliance, we're still looking at the increase of $170,000 or 12% year over year. Special events, this is just showing that we reduced our initial request for Christmas decorations. It was in the contracted services, so that was originally over $200,000. Now it's dropped down to $136,000. We subtracted out $70,000 of the $140,000 requested for Christmas. And this is a little throwback to our IT department over here. We are going to have a little increase in tech expenses due to implementation of these new softwares, replacements for the accounting software and potentially for the permitting software. But after that, given the rates that have been proposed to us, it should be, the cost should come back down to what they were in 2018, 2019 levels.
Crystal, those are just like setup fees and everything it takes to get
Correct.
automated?
Which brings us to the 5-year capital improvement program and the renewal and replacement program. No changes in the renewal and replacement program. Exactly what we presented in April is the same as what we presented in May, and it's the same as in this current version of the budget. Streets are the big one at $3.7 million. We have a lot of things that haven't been touched in 20, 30, 40 years, so we'll be approaching those areas next year. The other highlights are we still have lighting for Morgan Center in here at $1.3 million to replace the athletic field lighting that's been catching on fire and falling and rusting out. We still have the $790,000 in here to replace the playground at Morgan's, which we've mostly dismantled by now. There are just a few pieces left of that. And in accordance with the last meeting, we still have the $717,000 budgeted here to address the leaky windows and roof, and not only fix the windows, but also their liners and the stucco all around them. And here is a picture of the proposed playground. A lot of the investment goes into the surface, an ADA compliant surface. Other capital improvement program highlights. We have 10.1 million in this budget for the Crosstown Connector, 12.6 million for the undergrounding. It's because we're going to have to delay the full encumbrance. I can't encumber funds that I don't have on hand. Tarpon and Crystal Shores, we are in partnership with the TDC. They're paying a portion, and then from our 12% that we get from them, we're paying a portion depending on Crystal Shores. The portion for the city is lower than for Tarpon. Tarpon's a flat 50-50 split, but this is what we need to accomplish those two park developments. The Maddie Kelly outfall at Joe's Bayou is in here at 1.2 million, and we'd like to accomplish that before FDEP finishes their work at Joe's Bayou. Clement Taylor Park has been moved forward for reasons that will be explained at this next council meeting. Bottom line is Treasury has come to agree that none of the bids we received were responsive. So we need to do it again, and we're simplifying some things. Hopefully the next bids will be responsive. Yes, new vehicles and equipment. Capital, so here we have the list of new vehicles and equipment that we are proposing. The highlighted in green are the ones that we would need if we do bring the median maintenance in-house. Other things that we have on here, the community center needs a low-rise van that's easier for them to move things in and out of. Code compliance with their addition of all the new people that they added this year, they're finding the need for one more vehicle. Parks and Rec has put in a request for a towable boom lift, which will help us year-round do tree trimming, help with the Christmas decorations, and help with painting and other things. And then we have two other Parks and Rec vehicles that are on the request list, given the expansion of the parks. Now we'll go into cost recovery. Just a reminder, so whenever we look at our programs, we're looking at, is it more of a public benefit or more of an individual benefit? And where should the fees fall on this scale? For example, we have recreation user fees kind of falling closer into the middle. It's less of a general public benefit than, say, something like paying the sheriff's office for public safety, but it's more of a public benefit or more of an individual benefit than a developer impact fee, for example, or a building permit fee, which definitely benefits the homeowner, the user. And of course, there's some public benefit to those, obviously. The safer all of our homes are, the safer the whole village is, right? So fund balance projections. Here I'd like to point out that our general fund balance is getting really low on the projections. So traditionally, this highlighted yellow unassigned has been between $8 and $10 million. And as you can see, by 2028, we're getting down to $3 million, 2029 at $1.2 million. Our unassigned fund balance is getting really low for a few reasons. One of the number one reasons is the building fund is not paying for itself, as Florida statute suggests it probably should pay for itself. It's being a big drag on our general fund and on our unassigned fund balance. So I'm setting the stage so that you'll be prepared to hear 3TP come and listen to the fees that they're going to propose. Building permit fees are very complex. We have many, many different types of building permit fees, from electrical, plumbing, gas, and they're all different. They're all calculated in different ways. So the effect, in order to make this fund sustain itself, each of the fees will have a different percentage rate of increase. So it's very complex, and I'll let Alan lead everyone through that. Another reason that our fund balance is going low is the impact fees. So here we've had, since 2024, looking forward at the current capital improvement program that we have about $23 million worth of projects that are eligible to use impact fees because they're growth necessitated capital projects. We only have $2 million in impact fees that I can apply towards these projects. So taxes, grants, loans, parking fees, all these other funding sources are having to make up the difference. So impact fees is another thing that we need to take a closer look at as soon as we can. Spending taxpayer money on some of these projects is less than ideal. So Parks and Recreation is one more. I've noticed that kind of as a general rule of thumb, park user fees, well, I should say recreation user fees, tend to cover between 20 and 25% of recreation expenses. Up until last year, we were still hanging close to that 20% mark, but looking forward, we're dropping down to 14%. So this is another area that we should look at very carefully and consider adjusting or rearranging our recreation fees.
Was expenses went up or did income go down?
Expenses went up and income has not gone anywhere.
Okay.
Income has stayed very flat. The biggest change in expenses, we gave raises to most of our recreation people. They were all earning between $10 and $12 an hour, and now most of them have been bumped up closer to the $15 an hour range. So, and then the insurance, 11% this year. I think it was 9% last year. The insurance has gone up about 50% over the last 3 years. So here we are. Here we have a few more cost recovery areas that we're proposing. One that we've brought to you at the last meeting was potentially including condos in our short-term registration program. Building fund, building permit fees, which 3TP will be bringing their recommendations to you soon. Community development will also be bringing forth impact fees for us to look at, have a closer look at. Recreation, they're still considering adding a boat ramp fee for Joe's Bayou. I understand it's not very popular, but and then we're looking at potentially adjusting how we collect the net positive environmental benefit fee. We have about $60,000 a year in straight up expenses that we have to pay for every year. We bring in about $24,000 a year through the NPEB the way we're currently collecting it. So we're looking at different ways to be able to cover that base cost that might be a little more equitable and would be easier to program and budget. So we have some options that the committees are looking through. So here's an example of where we could be with our fund balance if we just made one change. If we increased our building permit fees 52%, then this is what the building fund would look like. So right now it's just negative, it's very negative, but if we increased our fees 52% going forward into next year, it would become positive. It wouldn't get to my target of a 3 month of operations balance within the next 5 years, but at least it would be positive. And if we did that, it would increase our, looking out to 2029, where I was expecting about a $1.2 million unassigned fund balance. This would double or triple that. It would bring it up to $3.2 million. So it's just something to consider when we're looking at these fees.
Crystal, have we looked at what other complementary cities charge for their building funds are we even close to what they charge?
So there are a couple different levels to look at that. One is to look at what we charge for each permit. kind of in the minority in that our schedule is so detailed and very, very complex, where a lot of others, they were able to make the change years ago to go to something more simplified. So now it's hard to compare really apples to apples. But most of the municipalities that I deal with on a daily basis, they're all making their building fund cover itself and to have a healthy balance, which is they tend to determine as about 3 months of operating costs in their reserve. So yeah, we're behind.
So is that what you're trying to help us do, is that proposal is to get us to where we should have that 3 month?
Right, so that's a council decision, right? And council gets to choose on how much we tax people versus how much we collect in fees. So because we like to keep our millage rate so low, it means that on the other side, things that are more of an individual benefit those fees need to be higher towards the individual benefit so that we can keep the millage rate low. Or we move it a little bit the other way.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add on and say that currently there's a study that's being performed to compare us to other communities as well, so that we are not so far out of step. And so, whilst we're complicated, the way we calculate things, we still got to be competitive in relation to the other communities. So we're going to make sure that the comparison is as close as possible.
So there's two components. There's the 3-month reserve, which we already have.
Not right
Yes.
now, not for the building fund.
We have our operational costs for 3 months in our reserves.
In
That's
the general
account-
fund.
Yes, in the general fund. So we have that reserve. What we don't have is a building fund that's paying for itself annually. But we have the reserve, so I don't want you to say, or I don't want you to leave the impression with the council that, oh, well, we've got to raise it this. We don't, because we have in a separate document said, acknowledged, we live in a hurricane-prone area. We have to have ability to pay our debts off for a year. If we get completely devastated, and we have to operate, pay the staff, pay their insurance, pay, everything. Actually, I think it's 6 months that we have total, right? Yeah,
It's 3 months of the general fund's
Fund.
operating budget.
right.
The building fund is not part of the general fund. It's 3 months of the general fund's operating budget for emergency operations, plus an equivalent for emergency maintenance. So you're correct, it does come out to 6 months, but that's on the general fund's operating budget, not the building fund's budget. Because the building fund by state, they've had us accounting-wise remove it from the general fund, so it's not part of the general fund operating budget. They're watching it separately and differently.
So, okay, go ahead.
And I'd point out, as you alluded to earlier, our permit fee is so complicated, I don't even know how we can make a comparison. When I was looking at it, compared to the county and some of the municipalities, we have 100 and some fees, and they have 20,
That's correct.
15. So I don't even know how we can come to a comparison until we simplify it, which is something we need to do. And then we can make an apple-to-apple comparison. Hopefully, we're going to work on that. But in its present form, I don't know how in the world we could come to any conclusion about whether it's competitive or onerous. In my opinion, when you have 100 different permits, that's pretty onerous. So I would like to move toward that, and then we talk about how we adjust the fee to try to get some more. Do we need to completely make it self-paying? I'm afraid that would increase the fees pretty dramatically. You have a 52% suggested. In my opinion, that's too much. But what would improve our fees that we get in would be to actually have it where you can go and get a permit in a timely fashion. I know you've heard that story. I hear it every day. If you could go in and get a simple permit, which we were going to break it down to tiers, complicated, simple, if you could get one of those in a couple of days or even a week, people would come buy them. Right now, they're working under the table because when they go to Intergov and try to go through, they go, what? And that's just not a plan that works.
Yeah, that's something I think that the whole team's been saying for a few years now. Go ahead.
That's the study that I'm alluding to, that's being worked on right now, that will be coming forth soon, trying to simplify our fee schedule.
and I'll just echo what Councilman Destin said. I think I've had a lot of upset general contractors on the phone, and I ask them, okay, if we take this situation out of what we're talking about, would you pay double if it was easy? And they're like, I'd pay triple. So like, obviously 50% is plenty, but I think if we can make an honest turnaround and deliberately show that we're breaking even, I don't think it really matters what the percentage is if we're providing an excellent service and we're not making any money. Or God forbid, we make 10% or whatever that is for the general, but I think it should be whatever it is to break even, and we should be top of the line customer service. So just 2 cents.
Good. Yeah, I think we've, community development's heard that strong and clear. Simplify. So back to NPEB. Okay, we just went over this. So the average expenses year over year is $60,000 for the water quality. So one of the ideas that was presented on the table is we have 1,476 slips in the harbor. So one option that was put on the table was a $108 per year operations assessment on the slips. Others were also talking about exemptions for homesteaded ones. Others were talking about having the general fund continue to subsidize more heavily and bringing this down to something lower, like a $25 per year fee. Anyway, there are a lot of options that are out on the table that are being reviewed by committees right now. I just wanted you guys to be kept up and aware.
First of all, I just have one quick question. Our net positive environmental benefit that we charge now, is that 25%?
It's 25% of the construction cost.
Okay, and a marina like has just been built across the harbor. What was the cost of that?
Are you talking about the Point Mezzanine Marina?
Yeah.
That development order came in what, 2009? Anyway, long before us. I'm not. Kim, were you on?
Are you asking the cost of the construction, or are you asking if we collected the MP?
I'm asking the cost of the construction so we can estimate what the fee would be.
So I think that was done in 2018 or 19 when they came to council. That was with Mr. Matthew Trammell and the developer at that time, and they made a presentation to council, and they had all that information and presentations, and the dollar amount ended up that they were prepared to give to the city was around $500,000 or $600,000. I'd have to get the exact numbers from Ray, but the city council declined to accept it at that time, so instead the developer gave that money to the Trust for Public Land so that it would be spent on city parks and the like, and then we did not collect that from them, but they did pay it.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
How do you do that?
That was done, and it was...
That's not an explanation, Kim.
It was done because of the direction of the city council
I got it.
to us at that time, at a public meeting.
So you can waive what an ordinance says? Was there a provision in the ordinance that allows you to waive the fee and have it go to the Trust for Public Land?
That was something that the council decided, so that's what
Okay.
was done.
We can talk about that in private.
Thank God I wasn't on
It was very public. I mean, it was not
I'm
done
sure
privately.
it was. I just don't know how you have a 25%
Yeah.
net environmental positive and then don't collect it until.
I do not believe the 25% has been consistently collected over the years by many, many developers. They are one of the few that paid over, the $500,000 somewhere at least.
Okay, so it would have been $500,000 had they paid it where they were supposed to pay it and had the council not waived it.
Then the fund would be healthy right now, and we'd be able to pay for dredging and other things that need to happen.
Thanks.
Isn't it only like, we've collected only from 3 dock constructions? It wasn't many.
No, each year, my records go back to 2006. I think maybe they made it an accounting software change back in 2005. So that's as far back as my records go, but I see something every year. It's just the average since then, year over year, has tended to be around $24,000.
That reflects only $100,000 worth of construction in the harbor per year?
It's been one year was as low as $600. Another year, one of the highest years in this time range was, I think, $58,000. So each year, it's just been very, very different, and it's hard to estimate in advance. It's hard to plan and budget.
Now, let me ask you another question. Since all of these dock slip owners are already paying a tens of thousands of dollars generally fund to the state of Florida to lease that property, I mean, I know that the government can do what it wants until someone says no up in the judiciary, but how do we charge them a yearly fee for something that really belongs to the state of Florida? I suppose we can do it. Right or wrong of it, though, is kind of questionable.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of special assessments where neighborhoods in parts of Florida have chosen to assess themselves to help keep their water cleaner. I've seen them, especially in places with canals with dead ends. I've seen them pay to install water curtains to keep their water from going stagnant. So I have seen areas in Florida where people who have homes on the water have chosen to work with their local county or municipality to address their water quality concerns.
I agree with you, but if you look in the City of Destin Charter on special assessments, it allows them, but only with the consent of the property owners.
The same, I mean, that charter was 84, right? Is that part of the original, or is that a 2000 when the harbor?
Part of the
Original? Okay.
So here we go back to some more recommended cost recovery areas. So we're just hitting cost recovery pretty heavily. Recreation user fees, short-term rentals, and then this is the history of our property values. I put a trend line here because sometimes you worry about those bubbles that are happening, like the one that happened in 2008. So there could be a little concern that one might happen again as our property values have risen third consecutive year in a row pretty significantly, pretty fast.
Hey, Crystal, can we go back one slide, please? If it's just okay to go backwards. This is the recommended STR registration for condos at 4,200 plus. So I know we had a lengthy discussion the other night. So where did this come from based on those discussions?
This was from the May 13th
Okay.
budget workshop.
We'll be doing what the recommended motion was, to take another look and
Okay.
come up with another category. And stuff.
Gotcha.
So that'll be coming back.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah,
And
so I
then-
think one of the recommendations was perhaps a $300 a year fee and add a new category of $1,500 and below.
I just wanted
So, yeah,
clarification.
we've calculated that out, but none of these revenues are in this budget because
Right.
council hasn't passed any of these.
Sure, just wanted to
We're
ask.
just showing
since
potential.
it
That's a
didn't
good
match
question.
up to the other night. And then, do we have data on who pays the non-resident fees for Joe's Bayou?
No, it's an honor box. So
Honor
people
box?
just put their $25 in an envelope and put it in a box, and it doesn't tell us who.
And where does the push keep coming from to keep throwing this back on the slides to add back the resident fee?
It's the fact that recreation is not covering its costs right now.
Right, but like consensus from council, it seems like most meetings recently have not really for that. So why does it keep getting brought back up? I'm just curious.
No, I've been hearing both from the public
Okay.
and from,
Have we ever looked into adding, instead of adding back a resident fee, we look at adding a new commercial fee for commercial entities that are, and also get rid of an honor box system and actually have a payment collection system? Like, have we looked into that before we keep adding back a resident fee?
the change in honor box discussion has come up, but the people who are discussing it chose to wait until FDEP completes their renovation of the Joe's Bayou.
Which will be,
The construction agreement has been approved by an FDEP, and so they should start construction very soon.
Yeah, we got a pre-app meeting in August 7 or something. Yeah,
Pre-app meeting meaning,
for the No, that's a different one.
I was gonna say,
That's-
aren't we
That's
at
Noriega.
100% or
Sorry, that's
something?
Noriega.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I was just making sure, I was like, how did we? Yeah, who, Jeff?
Yeah, Joe's, I think, is only at 60% right now, going towards 90s. Crystal, you're probably thinking Noriega Point, and that one will be starting soon.
Gotcha. Well, just, one comment for me, I guess. I mean, I think there's at least one other way we could look at recreation fee at Joe's Value besides keep trying to pound a resident fee.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be easy to do. Not even the honor box thing, just looking at a different type of usage fee in certain commercial businesses.
And to the new way of collecting, since it's not at 100%, I know I brought it up and a couple others have in the 30s and 60 workshop for Joe's, is while they wouldn't obviously put in that, like maybe the arm or something that you would see at a car wash because it's out of their scope, they did say at the workshops that they could run conduit and have the power or whatever logistical things we need underground. So when we're coming in, so as we get the 90s, it might behoove us to make sure the conduits are where a gate might be or where future things may be. Just kind of walking it down.
Well, of course, the honor box could be replaced with an app like we have at parking for
Oh,
non-residents.
I mean, I think to whoever works it right now, I think it would be a much more income generating employment position if the cash register guy turned into a dockhand of some kind, catching, grabbing, moving things around, getting tips, plus his hourly. I mean, I did that for my first job at Legendary, and I mean, a salary with the city plus tips, I mean, sounds
I think that's
very
coming
good.
to the next city council meeting, I
Oh,
believe.
perfect. Yeah, because I think, the cash register thing needs to go out. I think that's just insane that we're doing that. But,
Yeah,
honor box, sorry.
I think I agree with Kevin on charging the residents as a non-starter.
Yeah.
So whoever it is that's discussing this, stop wasting our time.
They're coming after you, Crystal. I won't tell them it's you.
Yes, so here we are back at the property values. And here we are, one of our favorite slides, ad valorem at different millage rates. So leaving the millage rate alone, 12 million will go into the general fund. The general fund values have increased 9.8%. The town center CRA values have increased 10%. And the harbor CRA values have increased 12.9%. So the rollback rate would be 1.5127. So if we adopt this year again at 1.615, that's effectively a tax increase of 6.76%.
The CRA evaluations, when, for example, the Publix, when does that new evaluation click in? Or is it when they bought the parcel, or is it a evaluation of once the CO is complete and the building or whatever is renovated?
Yeah, because it's not a homesteadable property with exemptions on it, I'd have to talk to the property appraiser, but I
Okay.
know that one adjustment happens upon the change of ownership, and then a second adjustment will happen upon completion of construction.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly the
No,
timing
that's
on
fine. I
that
was just kind
part.
of curious if that was a 1 or 2 thing. Okay, thank you.
Quick question, I know this is not part of that, but have we been given any kind of update as to their completion, CO, when they're going to be ready to open? I thought we were hearing June, and it's now the end of July.
Yeah, that still is the case. There are a few other things to wrap up, but they're still in that type of schedule. Yeah. Around June.
June of next year?
June of, no, late June of next year, yes.
And that's for Publix, right? Next year, June, Publix will be open?
Yes, by that time it will be open, yes.
All right, thank you.
I thought it was going to be this year. That feels crazy. We have another year of business that they're going to be like still building and creating their store.
What, did I say of next year or this year? This,
Because it's the end of
This
July,
year.
so June is past, so we don't know
Yeah, it's-
when, but it's like maybe in the next 90 days.
well, their projected timeline was June of this year. So they've got a few things to wrap up. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I've been telling people the wrong year for all year.
Thank you. The latest data on median taxable property values within the city of Destin puts our homes at $360,000. So at the 1.615, if you have one of those median taxable properties, then you're going to be at $582 this coming year. Let's see, get to where I can see. I can't see that far. Yeah, $582. So if we were to increase the millage rate a tenth of a mill to bring it to the 1.715, that would increase that median taxable homeowners' taxes by $36 for the year. But that would generate $829,000 for the city of Destin.
Crystal, a question maybe for Mr. Destin or Mr. Bagby. Do y'all know when the last time we ever increased the millage rate in the history of Destin?
We've been at this rate for, this will be our 9th year.
Okay, so now, 9 years ago then? And then before then, it was probably,
I'll share the chart with you. It's
Okay.
gone up and down, but
if you don't mind, I'd
but
love to see it.
Yep, I'll share that with you.
Yeah, we haven't increased the rate, but the property values have gone up an average of 10 to 15% a year for a very long time. So while we're not taking action to increase it, our good friends at the property appraiser's office, in fact, are. So,
No, but after, no one likes raising taxes, and I don't think we need to, but when you extrapolate it out to 30-something dollars, is that a year?
That's correct.
So I would say if we had a project that was in dire need of 200 or 829,000, I think we could almost sell it as one of those referendum kind of things, but unless we had something that this is going to that, I think it's almost a non-starter, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately.
yeah, and it's the $36, that's not a true picture of what's happening. That's the effect on homestead properties, which make up 14 or 15% of the properties in the city. So 80% or whatever it is will be much, much, much more than that. You know, people that own businesses, people that have vacation homes, you're talking about very large differences, not just 36%. So when you use that homestead, that's not a true picture.
No, actually, you'd be surprised. If you look at the property taxable values, the total, more than 80% are valued under $650,000. More than 80% of our properties.
Yeah, because I remember you and us talking about that.
Yeah.
That was impressive.
Yeah, how many are homestead? What percentage?
Only 13% are homesteaded.
Point.
Well, of course, yeah, they're our number one client.
Sorry, just to clarify though, are you saying that 80% of the homes fall
The-
underneath that
Of
category?
the property taxable values, more than 80% are valued less than $650,000.
So they would fall under the category of $40 to $60 more a year?
Correct,
And so what does the 15% of homestead have to do with that?
right. This is not by, yeah, well, 13% of the properties are homesteaded.
Right. But the 80%
But
you're talking about would fall
Of
under,
all of the properties within the city of Destin,
Got it.
80% of them have a
value.
taxable value of less than $650,000.
which they'd fall under that last
Correct.
time. Okay, got it.
Right, which is the average homestead is 300, so you're twice as much when you bring in the 650 of the others.
No, that's the median taxable property value. That doesn't take into consideration homesteaded or not homesteaded.
What is
The
the-
homesteaded median value would be much lower.
The 360,000.
The 360 is just the median taxable property value in the city of Destin.
So what's the 650?
The
Didn't you
650?
mention 650?
The
600?
value.
Crystal said that the 80% of the properties in the city of Destin are less than 650.
Right, so if I take the list of our 16,000 parcels, more than 80% of them are valued less than $650,000. This is the median. Of the whole list, the whole 16,000, yeah. Now, if I were to shrink that list to just the 13% that are homesteaded, it's way lower than that.
Yeah. I think what we're trying to extrapolate out is if you're at the top end of 600,000 and we're going to go up 1.1, you're paying 60 more. So 80% of them are only paying $60 more a year or less is what we're getting out of this.
That's correct.
And all of our playgrounds and parks and everything and roads are in disarray. Gotcha.
How's that annexation coming?
So now we have time to go back and review anything else you'd like to review. This is a reminder at the July 17th, which is actually the July 22nd. July 22nd regular council meeting, we'll have the item for council to confirm the millage rate and the public hearing number 1 date so that I can certify that to the property appraiser. And then just keep in mind also that we need to make that decision on whether or not we need to bring the median maintenance, bring it in-house or contract it out. And Public Works and Parks and Rec will have a lot more details to share with you to help guide that decision at a meeting coming soon, probably August 5th, because that bid just came in. So any questions or any comments, any additional updates people would like to see in the final version?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the equipment slide, and if we could get some more discussion again about the additional vehicles. I know at the last budget hearing, we didn't really get, I didn't feel like I got a good explanation about the van for the community center. And so do we have any more details tonight on that?
Yeah, Lisa, would you like to speak to the community center van?
Sure. So we have a van at this time, and we were going to move that into an irrigation truck for parks, irrigation facilities, and replace, for the community center, a smaller van. And what that does is where we can load up our equipment for special events, tables, where they go and so forth and so on. I know you had mentioned putting a camper shell on one of the trucks, and I did do that a couple of vehicles back. It works. Kind of hard to get in there and grab the stuff out, but the little minivan what is it that you have for the facility? Yeah, that one. Be very helpful to.
So just to make sure I understand, you're talking about replacing it because you're going to take the one that's currently used for Parks and Rec, and we're going to give it to the Public Works Department for them to
No,
use?
to our parks guys.
Oh, parks for irrigation. I
Yes.
heard irrigation. I'm sorry.
I'm
I
sorry,
was
yeah.
thinking
You're-
this guy
no.
over here, so.
Yeah. So
Michael,
we do
Michael.
the irrigation, and, then for them to have all their heads and everything right there, and for, just to have all their equipment instead of a
But then
toolbox.
and then we have two additional F-150s.
Now,
for parks.
those, to tell you the truth, we thought those were in rotation, to be replaced.
I'm pulling a Counselor Destin here, talking without the microphone. Look at there. No, but these are new vehicles, new equipment. The renewal and replacement of vehicles that are timing out is a separate spreadsheet.
So does that
Right.
mean,
It's under the renewal and replacement budget. This is CIP.
Right, so we were questioning that.
so that we
I'm
can take
not-
off the two trucks then from this? for
Well, I think
parks?
we really need to look at that and
So
Yeah.
in renewal and replacement for vehicles, we only had one vehicle on the list for 2025. That is the 2012 Ford Fusion that's currently being used by the code compliance. That's the only vehicle we had on for 2025 for replacement.
For replacement.
I guess my only ask would be,
But
I know
then-
since the first meeting, we brought up a couple of these, but maybe before we do finalize it, if we could get what exactly y'all want or need versus what's renewal and replacement versus what's new. I get the thing with the van if you're, replacing it, but then if we're still not sure if we need 2 new trucks, I'm not sure why it's still on this slide then, so.
Right.
Maybe for next time.
Yeah, we need to really look at that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Appreciate it.
All right. No? Want me to hold off?
And then can you talk on the CBA, $35,000 a year?
Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance?
We're gonna-
yeah.
what-
They,
Can you expound
they
more?
monitor,
Right, I got
I
that.
believe it's 14 different points from the Choctawhatchee Bay all the way down and into the harbor, and we just need to continue that
So
program.
is this like,
It-
we've
it
never
just-
done it
It
before?
wasn't, no. We've been doing it for a number of years now,
The
probably
monitoring,
decades.
yes,
The
but the
monitoring,
funding.
and we pay for that.
Okay.
But it was just not included. We created the water fund last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't move down into the water fund like it should have as part of the water quality.
So there's not really
Program.
much, there's no monetary change, we're just moving it to a different area.
It just, yeah, the 127 fund
Right.
didn't have it in there budgeted to pay for next year, and we
Okay.
definitely wanted to
Make sure-
continue.
Got it. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood where,
Yeah,
I'm all for it, I just
Yes.
didn't get it. Thank you.
yeah, it was just an oversight. It was missed at the last budget version.
All right, Councilman King?
Thank you, sir. Hey, I've had a few people reach out about the short-term rental registration for condos, and being that it's, we've got it in here as a $100 registration fee. The question that was brought to me was, is that going to be, where does that go? Is that going to be put towards impacts like, that, or is there a way to move that around to where that money does go towards impacts by people staying in these rentals?
So the intention was for this to go into the general fund to help us pay. I love how Bagby will talk about how we wouldn't necessarily have that $3 million bill annually from the sheriff's office if we didn't have all these extra people in town. So that's primarily where it would be, where it was intended to go and help us.
Okay, thanks.
I just had a couple of observations, and I was going to ask about one vehicle. I see we were going to buy a Bronco, which is a pretty expensive vehicle. I guess that's code enforcement? A Ford Bronco Sport?
I'll let,
all-wheel drive.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Councilor Destin?
My question is, why are we buying such an expensive vehicle, a Ford Bronco, for, it looks like code enforcement maybe?
So the Ford Bronco Sport is the smaller of the two. It's $29,000. Ford F-150 is $40,000. Now, that decision was made based on comments from council concerning buying less expensive vehicles, and that's why we did that.
Okay, well, I guess I looked at the chart wrong, or it had it listed as 40,000, did it?
A Ford F-150 is about $40,000 now. The Ford Bronco Sport, we just received one about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's $29,000.
So, but we need another one.
The code compliance department has some vehicles that are timing out. We try to replace them every 7 or 8 years. And so they have some 2017 models over there that we were going to surplus and replace.
And is that 7 years, is that dependent upon mileage, or what is that, what drives that?
It's a recommendation from the government services. What is GSA? It's Government Services Accounting or something like that. It's a kind of a national scoreboard for basically useful life for various pieces of equipment and vehicles.
Okay, well, 7 years is pretty quick. The only other observation I would have is we are going to be at a 32% of our budget is going to be debt reduction shortly. That's really not sustainable for very long, because That's a tremendous chunk. I've got a couple of suggestions on how we might make that better without dramatically increasing our fees and our taxes, which is, I like the cost recovery. That's kind of semantic for increasing tax and fees. What we could do, if we want to be smart about it, is that 20-year debt that we're about to take on, if we could pay it back in 10 years, we save approximately $3 million or some large amount of money on interest. And to do
But
that.
we need, yeah, go ahead. And to do that,
Okay,
because
and-
we don't have the cash flows right now, but to do that, go ahead.
To do that, we would need how much a year, Crystal? In excess of what it is we plan to pay now for the 20 years.
So I'm estimating our annual debt service payments are going to increase about 1.5 million a year, given the current rates. But I don't have, but that's based on a 20-year
It is.
amortization. So if we're to shrink that down to half, that would be 3 million a year.
So if we
Right.
increased our payment on principal itself by 600,000 or 700,000, that would cut the term of it pretty dramatically, wouldn't it?
But I would still need to find, okay, there are a couple things going on here. Number one is the revenues that I'm using to pay the debt service. For example, the electric franchise fee that comes in, the portion that's restricted to undergrounding is about $70,000 a month. We don't have a way of doubling or increasing that, so I'd have to find a different funding source. Same with the CRA. The two CRAs were the other resources for some of these funds, as well as road impact fee and gas tax number 2. That only comes in at $200,000 a year. So unless we could expand and choose another funding source, I am doing covenant to budget and appropriate non-ad valorem, so I can't go to property taxes to pay off this debt service without a referendum, which, you know, we don't have time for that now. So we'd have to find another funding source so that the cash coming in is large enough to pay double.
And you're laboring under the assumption that increasing taxes is the only way to get more revenue.
No,
Or-
and that wouldn't be, for the type of debt that I'm issuing, that would not be an appropriate source. Taxes would not be an appropriate source.
Okay, would an appropriate source be, what is our city budget now approximately? Our personnel budget is what, 7 million?
The base salaries is 7 million, the total for personnel is just over 11, it's
And the
11.7 million.
Our entire
Operating is
budget?
25 million, total
Okay.
operating is 25 million.
So 5% of that would be, 3% of that would be how much? $750,000 approximately? And that 750 would pay that debt off in probably 12 years, 11 years.
So
what
what-
I'm suggesting to you is that there are other ways to pay that debt quickly and save $3 million. The only alternative is not to get more revenue sources. We could actually tighten our belt and live within our means and not spend each year more money until we get that debt paid off. To save $3 million, is that, what would it take in our revenue, in our ad valorem tax to create $3 million more dollars?
That would be us going up to the full 2 mils.
It would, and that's the point I make. We can pay that debt off much quickly by just a very minor tightening of the belt and save the city millions and millions of dollars in interest. Just a thought.
I don't know how minor of a tightening of the belt that would be.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
without, I think the kind of reason we're behind the 8 ball is because we've had a tight belt for decades, evidently, because it seems like everything's been deferred for so long, and I'm not really one to want to raise taxes, nor do we need to in this instance today or at the next meeting, but, I mean, it's unsustainable because we've never zeroed out, it seems like. It seems like we've slowly just let things deteriorate. I mean, I used to believe in that model of, well, let me just drive it until the wheels fall off, but at some point, there's a cost recovery and a time to upgrade and save money long-term. But yeah, I feel like we've kind of pitched the ball down the hill, and here we are stuck with the bill from decades of deferral, so.
And
But I agree with the, where you're going with the, if we can find ways to
I would
save
say
through.
that's part of the solution, and should be part of the solution, but I would point out that our tax base has increased by an average of 10 to 15% for the last 8 or 10 years. The fact that we have not done some of the things we should have done is not a function of not having the money. We didn't do it. But I'm saying that the only solution that we look at should not be to raise taxes and fees. We should look at both sides of the equation.
I just feel like if the building department isn't zeroing out, that means whether I pull a permit this year or not for my house or my business, some of my taxes are still subsidizing some other development or improvement of someone else. I think there's somewhere the rationale makes sense, and I think there's others where it's just flat up a tax, and whether there's a public benefit or not is up for you guys to decide. But I don't know, I just feel like on the building side, it just seems weird for my general taxes and our general taxes to be subsidizing something that evidently a lot of people are against, which is this growth thing, even though that's healthy.
Yeah, and I would concur with, we've got some problems in our formulas. The biggest driver of not enough roads, not enough infrastructure is high density development. Our impact fees should be dramatically higher, for when you're putting 10 or 12 or 15 units on an acre, $10,000 a unit is what it should be, or somewhere. But we have to have studies that will support that. But that's what's driving our problems with the population, is the high density. Yet we've taken no steps whatsoever to really curb it. That should be something we should put into the budget, because that's where our real crisis is coming from. Packing too many people into too small an area and not having them pay for the consequences. So I would encourage the staff to look pretty strongly at our impact fees for high density, and let's start making that part of our economy pay its way.
Louis, want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a proponent of folks paying their fair share, and the greatest development should pay the highest rate possible. So we'll look at that. As a matter of fact, we have a discussion on the second meeting in August, where we look at the impact fee, the rationale for it, and what the categories we'll be proposing. So that'll be a good discussion to have.
But isn't that part of the mobility thing? I felt
Correct.
like, didn't we have like Discord up here about the impact fee for that? So
Yes, so that's coming back.
you're coming from high density though, not a blanket.
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean, that's where our problems are coming from.
Yeah.
That you can't get on the streets, and you don't have enough recreation, you don't have this, it's coming from high density when
Yeah.
you're putting 20 units on an acre.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
And the impact fees are nowhere adequate.
yeah.
So what we need is a study that shows what the true cost of that is, and get the impact fees up to where it is carrying its share. And this is another, we need to have, when you come to a mountain that you have to climb over, like our debt right now, you have to hit it from 6 or 7 different angles. Just raising the fees on Joe's Bio and permits and recreation as our only solution, that's not good enough. Let's hit it from a lot of different directions and get to a solution.
So I'm going to dovetail on that. You ready? We're going to start at 50,000, then we'll go slide by painful slide. No, we are at a point here. Yeah, you might want to go get something to eat. We're at a point, a convergence point, where we are maxed out on our debt, and so if we have something catastrophic happen, we don't have the flexibility, or won't have the flexibility to do the things that we need to do. Now, fortunately, we can still operate the city and do some basic things, but Mr. Destin's right. We've got to contain some of these costs, okay? And containing the costs, there's two sides of that equation. It's the spending and the revenue, and on the revenue, it's the fees, really, and the millage. And most everybody seems to be, you can't charge the locals a launch fee at Joe's Bayou. Okay, that's $40,000 or whatever it is. I'm hard over on the millage. I'm not going to vote for a millage increase at 1.615. Yes, it's been that since fiscal year 2016. which was the budget that was passed after I got off the first time. I'm just not going to support a millage increase because it is not fair to all our citizens. And we can talk about homesteaded properties, and it's only 13%, and their average value of their, okay, but some of the homesteaded properties have values much larger than that, and those people will pay that additional cost. One of the reasons.
There's a question on that.
Yeah,
Are you
sure.
saying an increase to the fee or a percentage in are you advocating for a rollback or you just said
No.
Okay.
Flat. I'm
Okay, just
a flat guy,
Okay,
and,
yeah.
you know, we've been doing this for 9 years, let's do it for another 9 years.
Okay.
Or lower it, but I don't think that's gonna happen when we have, you know, we're increasing our debt payments by 300% in the next 5 years. Think about that. We're increasing our debt payment by 300% in the next 5 years. So, we're going to have some give and take, where there's going to be some fee increases, you know, and y'all probably can outvote me, but there might be a millage increase. I don't think so. I don't think there's a heart, particularly in an election year, for 4 people up here to vote for a millage increase. So we got to figure that out. One of the things that has jumped out at me as I went through the book this weekend, we've got to stop the integrity check that we're doing on our citizens. And what I mean by that is, you know, in particular, the developers, okay, or the builders, and the people on the harbor. So what we're really doing is an integrity check and saying, okay, you're going to pay us 25% for the cost of your dock. What's the cost of your dock? It only cost me $500 to replace my dock. Okay, that's an integrity check. And I'm not saying anybody said that it was $500, but I guarantee you it's like the guy that wanted to expand his dock and, oh yeah, it's only going to cost, you know, an additional $5,000 or $10,000. I'm like, dude, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. You got an upstairs deck on it now. So that's a reinforced floor because we're forcing them to do that. We need to just simplify it and say, and with the developers, you know, all these permits and everything that they've got to pull, yeah, they probably don't pull half the permits that they are required because we're doing an integrity check on them. You got to pay a fee here, you got to pay a fee here, and you can't even navigate the dadgum software. So I have to be careful. My wife might be watching. So so we need to stop with the integrity checks. You know, I'm okay with $108 flat fee. We go to them, we say, look, if you want us to go with a special assessment, you know, you want the water quality good, this is what it costs to keep the water quality good in the harbor. Or if it's $108 flat fee for whatever per year, a dock registration fee, you know, y'all can figure that out. But we got to stop with the how much did it cost you to get that deck replaced? Well, here's what I really paid my contractor, and then here's the invoice he gave me to show to you guys. That's wrong on so many levels. And the same thing with the developers. Get it to where it's 15 fees, and, you know, yeah, we're going to increase it, maybe not 52%, but we're going to increase it, but it's going to be simple, and you can actually do it, and then we can actually check that. So that's my first point on the fees. Containing the costs, we all have to contain the costs. You know, I'm going to make a motion when y'all come back to cap the merit at 3% and have a 1, 2, 3. And not because 2 years ago, you know, we had this study, we have to bring the staff up. Everybody up here agreed that we have to bring the staff up to a livable wage. We've maintained the cost of living, okay, like our policy says. And on top of that, we've given them a merit each of the last 2 years. And I'm not saying, and I am a firm believer in merit increases, but at some point, everybody has got to tighten a little bit on what we're doing. And we're going to have some give and take on the, you know, as opposed to putting the flag in the sand and saying, no, we can't increase this fee or we can't increase that fee. I was very heartened to hear Mr. Destin talk about raising impact fees. I've been sitting up here for years, and he was the one. But you have to remember, and this is a little historic analysis for some of you, the reason we had these lower fees is because 20 years ago, we thought this city was on the cusp of a massive redevelopment. And we were going to get rid of all the cinder block houses and all the old Destin housing. This whole place was going to look like, Walt Disney World or someplace, but we were going to redevelop everything. And here we are 20 years later, and the low fees haven't incentivized the developers the way we thought it would, particularly in the harbor and the town center, to redevelop those areas. Publix is the first really big redevelopment that's occurred in that area. So, and I'm now of the opinion that no matter what the fee is, they're going to redevelop it because there's so many people here and they want to sell their goods. So I want to go to start with your 2025 guiding principles. Who came up with these? Was this you or Lewis, or did y'all have a committee that said, I agree with safety? I'm not sure I'd put improved beautification service levels, i.e. median maintenance, number 2, but I'm just wondering who came up with these.
Yeah, that's the team of all the directors together.
Okay. All right, y'all, you can take that slide out of the next one, because that's not, if the council wants to give you priorities on the budgeting or guiding principles, they're more than welcome to do that, but that's not where we're going. So if you go over a couple more slides, we're spending 25% of our budget on culture and recreation in this proposed budget, and 25% on transportation, 23% on physical environment, and then 17%, which is predominantly personnel, right, on that. The ops change, if you look at the ops change, yeah, it goes up 4.4%, and we already had the Florida Blue discussion, but really it goes up on debt service, 52%. To Mr. Destin's point, that's eating into things that we could be doing. And so if we can find 100,000 or 300,000 or 750,000, to pay this off early or earlier, to pay down so that we're not paying for 20 years, and I'll discuss that when we get to the debt slide and you go out 5 years as opposed to go out next year versus this year, because then it goes from 1.78 million, okay, to 3 times that amount. And so, but you talked about changes. I think we already covered the annexation cost savings. I think we already covered the Florida Blue, and obviously I'm going to make a motion. And that, that motion is 1%. And I know everybody gets, oh my God, we're going to, ding the staff and we got to protect the staff. I agree with that 100%. I was one of the main supporters of getting them back to normal. But at some point, normal, above normal is not the way to go. On the, no, that's still this year. Homestead, we talked about that. Okay, if you go to the personnel highlights, the personnel costs are going up $1.3 million, approximately. Okay, 1.3. Almost, not quite, but almost half of that is the new personnel. Okay, it's not Florida Blue. 538 of 1.3 million, that is, and then if it's 310,000 for 4%, then it's probably somewhere around 250,000 for 3%. And I know 60,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but 60,000 to start paying down the debt, it is a lot. And so I would just ask that y'all think about that, and now, when it comes back before us. The positions, I got it. You got to look at the bid, and I think somewhere in here it says the bid was more, than what we're projecting. But what we're projecting on the very next slide, okay, is 114,000, all right, for equipment, which is going to wear out. And I believe that is a 3-point, I ran the numbers and I didn't write it down. I think it's a 3.2% increase just for the personnel costs the following in FY 2026. Okay, that's not even going to pay for their insurance increase. That's not going to pay. So I'm just trying to figure out how you got from 298,000 this upcoming FY to 309,000 next year. Because it's 3%. I mean, that's probably going to be the COLA. So that's nothing else increasing. So I just ask that you look at those numbers, but I didn't see where the 114,000, we started contributing money to replace those in 5 years or 7 years or however long mowers last, and the truck and the 3 years for it's short for mowers. So the operational highlights, recreation, I got that. That's the I want to go to the technology cost trend, because the spike, maybe I'm all messed up, but the spike I see in FY 2024. So we're going to buy all that stuff this year. We're going to get it all installed this year. And then next year it's probably training to get people. It goes down and then it normalizes, if you want to call it normalizes, back in 2026. Right? So is that where the costs are?
That's correct. So the implementation gets encumbered up front when we sign the contracts, which we're hoping to sign before September 30th. There will be some additional training in 2025. Okay. And then starting from 2026, it should just be the year-over-year license agreements.
All right. Now go to the renewal and replacement slide, the first one with numbers. I get the, $3 million for streets, roads, sidewalk. I'm not even sure we can get all that done in a year, and 717.5, we talked about that at the last meeting. HVACs, $3,844. So that tells me we are, of all the buildings we have and everything we're responsible for, we're going to replace really less than one HVAC, because they're about $5,000 a piece, at least for a residential. So our renewal and replacement for an entire year on HVACs is $3,844.
Well, a lot of them went out this year and this past year. So we've replaced all of the old ones. We're just down to one small one. I believe that one's is that the one on the sheriff's substation or the?
No, it's
actually,
Dalton
that's just the
Threadgill.
heat pump.
It's a
On the
Dalton
Dalton
Threadgill
Threadgill.
heat pump. That's the only thing that's timing out according to our schedule. I mean, lightning strikes happen.
Okay.
It
Excuse
works
me.
very well right now.
Yeah.
I'll just give you some feedback.
Okay.
For what it's
That's
worth.
good.
So you can take it off if you want this year.
No, I'm just trying to figure out.
It is.
No, because then it'll break if we take it off,
Yeah, it is 24 years past due for, past its remaining life, but if it's working great, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? But a lot of the stuff that we didn't budget for this year, this building
Yeah.
and the
Well, what do we
building
budget?
across the street and
What's
the
our
community center,
timeline
those
on
all,
air conditioners?
those all broke.
Okay, for exterior units, 10 years. For
Okay.
interior units like air handlers, 20.
Okay, all right, makes sense. And then vehicles, I was kind of like Mr. Destin or whoever brought it up, might have been Kevin, we're replacing one vehicle this coming year, one.
One 2012 vehicle
Okay,
for next year. And then the other vehicles that were on the list were new. Mainly it was because we doubled the size of the code department this last year, but we did not budget this year to add vehicles for all the new staff.
And I can add to that, Mr. Bagby, after the recession in 2008, 2009, purchases on vehicles went to basically zero. So
Right.
we have caught up over the past couple of years. We do not have I think I'm correct, we do not have a 2013 vehicle in the fleet. We only have one 2014.
Okay.
It's just, we had very sparse purchases for several years, and it started picking up again in 2017, 2018. So we'll have some coming up for the 2026 budget.
Well, and in that regard, I'm a little bit like Mr. Destin. If it's working, it's kind of like the air conditioner that Kevin was talking about. If it's working, we put it in the budget and we plan to replace it, but, we don't preemptively replace it unless we have a problem with it. Not a catastrophic problem, hopefully, but a minor problem. So the next one is on page 32, okay? And this is the where we are now fund balance projection. And, 2031, we will have decreased our unassigned fund balance by 90%. Folks, you're just asking for a disaster.
Question on that.
Yeah.
The unassigned, does that include the months of reserves?
No, the reserves
'cause
are
that's
committed fund
they're
balance.
committed.
Okay, that's
And
in the
they're-
committed fund
They're
of
in there
the 6 or
separately,
even-
but to Councilman Bagby's point, this is of deep concern to me too. So to your point, we either need to tighten up some belts, but I feel like our directors are fairly frugal. They're not trying to add a lot of services or add a lot of, extra personnel to give, excellent service or anything. But so I just see us in a position where we really need to concentrate on the revenue side.
And I understand, I think, I agree with Mr. Destin, we need to take a holistic approach to this. The revenue side alone will not solve this problem that we've created. And I understand how we got here. We wanted Harbor One, and we wanted additional beach, and that was in our priorities. And now we've got to, put parking lots there, and we've got to put something on Harbor One eventually. And we kind of want to look at what we're going to do at the town center. I'm just saying, we're not going to be borrowing to do that. We are borrowed as much, when you're spending as much in 6 years that we will be spending on debt, you won't be buying trucks. You won't be buying air conditioners. You won't be buying any of that stuff if we don't get a handle this year on some of these fees. And I'm a strong proponent. I was on the undergrounding, the franchise fee, just replace as much as that produces every year. And that's how Panama City Beach did it. They're doing like a mile at a time, and they'll stop, they'll generate some revenue, and they'll put another mile of, underneath. But we've got to have a plan to do that better than what we have on the books right now.
The unassigned, what's comfortable for you, just so I know, as our finance director, what makes you feel comfortable as an unassigned balance? Like what would be an optimal goal?
For our city and with all of the grant programs that we have going on, I would really like to see our unassigned fund balance maintained between 7 and 9 million.
And then that just helps us be flexible.
That's correct, because all the grants are on a reimbursement basis.
And that's what that money typically has been used for, is if we want to buy something and we have to do 50%, okay, well, that's our 50%. Or, we have to do it up front, and then the federal government or the state government will reimburse us. Okay, here's our upfront. Now, we're waiting on the check to get back from them.
Speaking of which, the Crosstown officially, we are good to go as, last month? It's a little late,
Yeah.
but yeah, to that point, that's exactly what they're looking for.
So, yeah, we talked about the short-term rentals on the condos and, whether it's $250, $300 or whatever, but that's to pay for the additional lifeguards, the Marine Patrol, and the sheriffs that we need. Yeah, it's not a, hey, we're going to put this in our reserves and we're going to sit on this and have a big party for the staff or something, or a big 40th anniversary. Oh, wait, we are going to have a big 40th anniversary. No, yeah. But it is, I like to see a revenue linked directly with the cost account. Okay, so on the building fund, we try to do that. On the registrations for the short-term rentals, we try to do that, and we say, look, yeah, it's coming out of the general fund, but it's coming from these sources, just like we have with the undergrounding.
Hey, Jim, can I?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
I just want to insert, you just told us that the lifeguard fee, they want an additional 180,000, not the 100,000 they want 280,000. And those lifeguards take care of all of the beaches that everybody enjoys, all the way up and down, in front of condos and everything, am I right?
You're correct, and the TDC does pay the lion's share of the cost for lifeguarding services on our beaches. But they're maxed out, and they're at their cap that's put upon them by the state. They cannot give any more to anything public safety related. So the lifeguards, the Destin Fire District is coming to us to help fill the gap.
Crystal, just a quick comment in case public's listening to this meeting. TDC can't, but the Okaloosa County could, right?
That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and some of those private condos that don't, they could also help with that. But, we have a responsibility. Those are our guests. Those are our tourists, and they need to be protected, because the last thing we need is a bunch of folks drowning because we didn't have lifeguards, because then we wouldn't have to worry about short-term rental condo revenues. If you go to the taxable property value, and this is really, I think we're all in, because this is the reason I'm so concerned. It's this slide. It's number 41. I'm sorry. I should have said that up front. Keep going. Keep going. There you go.
41, back up.
Back up one. Okay. My concern is that looks a lot like, 05, 06. You see it going up, and I know, because I've got some units that they're not deeply discounted, but they have had a price improvement, not a price reduction, a price improvement in their listing number, because there's a whole host of reasons. A lot of the condos are doing special assessments now that they have to make repairs that they have deferred for years. There's a lot of product on the market, and people have been here and bought or not bought or whatever, and now they go someplace else for a year, and they'll be back. But my concern is that peak may, in the next year or two, go back down more along the normal increase line there, and then what that does to our revenues is the valuations go down, and all of a sudden, instead of increasing 9.9%, the horrors of, it actually decreased 0.9%, and where's that money coming from now, particularly with the debt? Because we can defer buying vehicles, and we can defer, probably not air conditioners, but we can defer a lot of things. We can say no merit raises this year, but you're getting your COLA, and, thank God we found enough money to get you your COLA, but we can't do that to the debt, And so we just need to prepare that, because when you only have $800,000 in your unassigned fund balance, that's not going to pay the debt bill very long. Thanks.
And that concludes the Bagby workshop.
All right, I got a question. I guess we really didn't talk about BTRs really, but aren't we allowed to increase 5% every 2 years?
That's a legal question, 5%, right? Yes. Unfortunately,
Not very much. When you look at a $30 BTR and you're going up 5%. So
But if we continue going up every 2 years, eventually, maybe in 10
I mean,
years.
the way inflation goes, I don't know if it ever catches up. But I do know that staff is working on some options regarding that to come back to council with. Probably not ready to talk about it tonight, but we are meeting next week about that issue. So we may have some alternate suggestions that will be helpful.
And then I do have just a thought, since we're going down the potentially doing our own medians and everything. I'm sure there's a lot of logical reasons why this is a bad idea, but I know Parks and Rec has landscaping crew, and now we'll have Public Works landscaping crew. Is there some efficiencies to just create a landscaping crew that is our grass versus whose grass is it? And maybe we can use one of the trailers and half the fleet here and half the, I don't know, I just feel like that might be, if we're looking at strapping things up, that consolidate it into
That's-
a full,
Yes, that's another option we're looking at.
okay, all right, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll just, a couple of things. This is our last workshop until,
There was one more optional
Potential, right?
workshop that
So
was
this is probably our last
for
one then.
August 12th, is that correct? Second Monday in August.
Monday in August, I believe.
right? You know, Mr. Destin had some comments about fees and Mr. Bagby and everybody, and we are in a odd predicament, and the future is very odd. As a business owner myself, you know, over the years, you have to make decisions of, do I just keep increasing my cost to my customer to just make more money, you know? Make more money, and do I do this to offset the cost of running my business? And those are all the decisions that you have to consider. You know, for example, now you go to restaurants, and almost every restaurant charges a non-cash fee. You know, that's become a very popular thing to pass along to the customers. There's a reason why they do that, you know. And they increase the cost of their ingredients or the menu. That as well happens because of inflation and all that stuff. So now the city, we have to figure out how to do some of these things. And fees and taxes are never favorable, sure, but it's definitely something that needs to be considered and looked really importantly looked at, as well as the impact fees that we talked about. But we also, I think, staff or directors or whoever need to look outside the box too at unique ways to increase revenue, right? I shared, I think personally in the past, ideas to have sponsored companies, you know, sponsor areas at our parks and recreation, our fields, and have national brands come in and be annual contributors. You know, I think Public Sports Park has, the local water park is paying, you know, $100,000 a year to have their name on a picnic table out, you know, all along the places. So small chunks, obviously, but they all add to the ultimate pile. And I would love to continue to try to have staff find unique ways like that are outside the box, besides just the fees and taxes. I think we do need to add an increase in fees. You know, again, like I talked about the Joe's Bayou earlier, we've mentioned a commercial fee before. I guess the council hasn't made a motion to actually go forth with that. But it would be something that would be nice for staff or city manager or whoever to, again, bring a unique, different idea to us. The one other thing is the playground. You know, I know that's a highly exciting thing that it was mentioned at the last meeting that staff really wants to do. I'm sure a lot of moms and dads with kids want to see that as well. If it wasn't just yanked up overnight, you know, and completely gone, maybe we would be able to use something still. But I do think it'd be nice to understand other options. But I guess if we're going to budget $800,000 and we ultimately that'll go out for bid, and maybe we will see other options. Maybe it doesn't cost nearly $1 million for a playground. Maybe we can get competitive bids. But that's one of those renewal replacement things where it's not in the budget, right? But we're going to add it in the budget, and it's going to immediately have a nearly $1 million impact on our budget. We have had items on our budget for multiple years that we continue not to do. And that's why
That's correct.
we
We have
continue
about
to defer maintenance and defer issues. But Now we're going to just throw something on there for nearly $1 million instead of maybe looking at that 2 years from now or 1 year from now and take care of the things that we said we were going to take care of right now. So, me personally, I would rather wait to have $1 million playground be installed at Morgan's. That's just my thought. And I'm sure I'll have a lot of my friends, my wife's moms, and everybody else be upset with me for saying that, and that's okay. But that's just, I feel the majority would not want to see that instantly hit the budget this year. So, but thank you all for all the work for these continued workshops and everything y'all do. I know somebody said something earlier about our directors and staff aren't frugal. I somewhat agree with that. I think Mr. King chuckled, but when we brought up the questions about the trucks and the vans, there was still uncertainty, right? So to me and to the common person, that is frugal. When you're still trying to present options to buy $100,000 of vehicles, but we're not sure, that to me is kind of misrepresented. Accidental, maybe it's okay, but I just want to really be careful about these things that possibly slip in last minute that we're not constantly staying up to date on every single time we get a new 300-page packet. So, but thank y'all for the presentation.
All right, anyone else?
Thanks, Crystal, and thank you to the staff. I know that this is quite the chore to try and put all of your, information together for us, and this is, another workshop where we're trying to make sure we're spending our money, the money we take up for our citizens, to the right programs. I do know that park was deteriorating year after year, and it got to where it was flat out dangerous. It had to be completely removed, or we would have had somebody get hurt in the next couple of months. So it was a responsible decision to get it all up and out of there and go look at, okay, let's put in a new one. And if you look at other cities, I think most of them have put in new parks with that type of grounding, which is the most expensive part because you have to make it ADA. I realize it doesn't seem like we should be spending money on that, but if you go out to any of those ballparks during the season, there are hundreds of toddlers, and I think it will be well-spent money. And I don't think there's a parent in this town that would say, yep, put it off 2 years. So I appreciate your thoughts on that, Kevin, but I'm a mom and a grandma, and I'm going for the park, okay? But thank you, everybody, for all your hard work. Thank you for helping us try and get this sorted out. And hopefully we can find ways to bring more money to the table without putting taxes on our citizens.
Just one follow-up, Lisa. What is our timeline if we continue forward? What is that ideal
For the playground?
For the park, yeah, like just for...
Yeah, as soon as we know that we are going to go forward.
Yes, yeah, of course, on us.
Yes.
Once then...
The contractor that we're using is a state contract.
Okay.
So, if we go with that contract, it's probably 5 months after he gets the go.
For sure. So then he'll start in 5? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Seeing no further talks up here at the council, public comments? Yeah, no worries. I know, he got his cardio in.
He heard something.
We need to find a new meeting spot. It's a legal thing.
Brian Otto, 3826 Indian Trail. Oh, I gotta keep it. Okay, bear with me as I get through this. So, follow me here for just a quick second. I get to travel a lot, right? And I get to take my kids with me. I promise you we have the worst parks of anywhere I've ever been. I could travel. This is not a lie, and anybody wants to fact check me, I can help you. I spend all the time on the road with my kids, and I can drive 45 minutes down a gravel road to a town that has 1,900 people, and it's an amazing park. I don't know how we pay for it. I often figure out how these towns try to pay for this. I don't have the solutions.
What are their beaches like?
What?
What are their beaches like in those towns?
I get it, right? There's cost associated everywhere. I'm just pointing it out there that I challenge someone to go find a town we're the worst parks, we're the worst park, right? Our worst total parks, right? It's tough. I've been up here myself talking about Clement Taylor, right? We've had a board on the slide for years, and I understand Treasury, and I try to listen, and I get it, and maybe I should join Park and Recs Committee, and I get it, but I'm also very, we all got our own things we got to deal with, but, so that's my comment there. Parks, they're bad, and, one thing, I want to just give some advice. I'm sure you guys are all doing this stuff, but when I look at these towns I go to and I try to figure out how they're paying for it, it seems that there is a few common themes, and maybe we looked at that. Like the helicopter guy that everyone's mad at, ask him to donate a park. Let's see if we can solve two problems at once. Make a helicopter-themed park right there by the airport and see if the whole town doesn't love it. We may hate him, but maybe we love him at the same. I tell you what, I live over, you know where I live? You guys know, I live right there on the Indian Trail. Them helicopters, I got home Sunday from a month on the road. They were all day, boom, boom, boom. I know where I live. I'm not complaining, right? But if that guy built a playground, my wife would be happy, right? There's a trade-off to everything. I see that they use their utilities, go to around the Atlanta area, all those towns, water company, park by the water company, park by this utility, right? Have we exhausted all those avenues to figure out some money for some parks? And the other one is the builders, of course, right? Every town that has a nice park system tends to have the builders building the little pocket parks everywhere, and the HOAs are maintaining them, and that's all part of the developmental plan, right? And they're amazing, right? Go out west, parks are amazing, right? So let's figure that out if we can or can't. Maybe we can't afford it, I don't know. Something, right? So, have we thought about that? And the other one, I know you guys have talked about this, I just don't know where it goes. Divesting, right? Divest the park behind the elementary school. That thing is probably costing us more than we could ever get out of it, right? If we have an ability to trade it for some money or trade it for a better position to get a better park, yay, right? I think that's all I had. Most of it was pretty interesting, right? Makes sense. I don't really care about a lot of the other stuff that's really important, but the parks is, right? Morgan's, oh, here's an idea of Morgan's. Maybe better management, right? Like, it seems like, once again, I'm a coach a lot of teams. I coach at Destin High School. I coach at Destin Middle School. When I was in Northern Virginia, your practice time was your practice time. The second your practice time was over, a field marshal ran you off the field and the next team was on. And they're charging each time, right? You get your time, that's it, right? None of this wide open field and 5,000 kids running around. It's great, it's wonderful, but if we need money, who's using the fields that shouldn't be using the fields, right? Let's manage that better. That's all I have, I think. Joe's Bayou is wonderful. Please don't raise our fees there. There you go. That's a lot. Thank you, guys. Oh, 5.5 hours. Thank you, guys. I mean, I know it's a lot, but for the most part, you guys stay collaborative and work together. So that's amazing because I got so many miles in listening to that thing, so.
A couple states over. All right, appreciate you, Mr. Otto. All right, Sandy, got anything? All right, seeing no further comment. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Lisa. Not me. Oh, I thought you were pointing at me. All right, adjourn.